Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a real classic RC issue, maybe the classic issue for a certain generation. The Tamiya HotShot's infamous front suspension slop.
Ah, yes, the HotShot. Revolutionary buggy for its time. Shaft-driven 4WD, those unique monoshocks.
Absolutely groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But it had this well-known quirk, this imprecision, this slop in the front end.
Definitely. If you look at forums, even today, people talk about loads of play. It was just accepted knowledge.
So our mission today is to unpack that. Why was it sloppy? How did people fix it, especially thinking about that famous CRP brace? And what does this whole saga tell us about RC innovation?
And it really was a saga. That aftermarket brace, many considered it pretty much essential to stop the upper wishbone moving. It wasn't just a minor thing.
Right. So imagine you've just built your brand new HotShot back in, 85, 86. You take it out and you immediately feel it's just not precise. What was actually causing that?
Well, there were really three main things going on. The biggest culprit was lateral flex.
Flex in the arms themselves.
No, actually, the main issue was the gearbox casing, the stock ABS plastic. Well, it would physically flex when cornering.
The whole gearbox.
Yeah, and that meant the upper A-arm pivot pins where the arms mount, they'd actually splay outwards. CRP even called this out in their 87 catalog, saying their fix would reduce lateral movement on the front upper suspension arms.
So your suspension geometry is changing while you're driving.
Exactly. Mid-corner, things are moving that shouldn't be. Leads to really vague, unpredictable handling.
Okay, so that's the flex. What else?
Second was axial play, just built-in clearance. The arms could shift forwards and backwards a bit along the pivot pin.
Like sliding along the pin.
And third, just basic material wear. Those original 8mm brass pivot balls and the plastic uprights they sat in, they wore down relatively quickly, which just made all the other issues worse over time.
So yeah, put it all together. Sounds like a recipe for frustration if you wanted sharp handling.
It really was. But, the huge popularity of Tamiya kits back then created this whole hop-up culture.
The golden age of aftermarket parts.
Right. Companies like CRP, Parma, others, they thrived by finding these little weaknesses in engineering solutions. The fact the CRP 1650 even existed and was popular proves how widespread the HotShot slop problem was. People wanted a fix.
Okay, let's talk about that fix. The CRP 1650 A-arm stabilizer, it's almost mythical now. What was it and how did it work its magic?
It was actually pretty simple in concept, just a U-shaped plastic brace and 4 little plastic shims.
That's it.
That was the core of it. But the key was the material they used for the brace. Injection molded Delrin.
Delrin, okay. What's special about that?
Delrin, or POM, it's known for being exceptionally stiff and having great dimensional stability. So, unlike the stock ABS gearbox, it holds its shape under load. It was a massive upgrade in rigidity right where it was needed.
Stiffer than the original plastic then?
Much stiffer. But importantly, it wasn't as rigid as, say, aluminum. It struck this really optimal balance. It added precision, but it still had just enough give, enough compliance to absorb big hits without shattering the gearbox casing.
Ah, so it wouldn't just transfer the shock.
Precisely. That Delrin brace connected the 2 upper A-arm mounting bosses on the gearbox, basically creating a strong triangle and stopping them from splaying out. No more lateral flex.
And the shims.
The little plastic shims just took care of the axial play, filling the gaps on the pivot pins so the arms couldn't slide back and forth. Simple, but effective.
And now, finding an original CRP 1650, forget about it. They're collector's items. Yet back in 1987.
Get this, the catalog price was $2.99.
$2.99. That's incredible.
It really is. And what's fascinating is how relevant it still is, because Tamiya re-releases their old kits.
Faithfully, flaws and all.
Exactly. So that CRP 1650, designed in the mid-'80s, it fits the original HotShot, the SuperShot, the Bigwig Boomerang, and the modern re-releases. The 2024 HotShot II, the Blockhead Motors version from 2023. They all have the same basic front-end design and the same potential for slop.
So the problem and the solution have persisted for nearly 40 years. Okay, so if you can't find that unicorn $2.99 part today, what are people doing now? What are the alternatives?
Oh, the RC community is endlessly creative. There's the classic DIY fix, the O-ring and washer method.
Right, I've heard of that.
Super chip. You basically use small washers as shims for the axial play, and then slip an O-ring over the pivot pin boss to provide some tension against the lateral flex. It actually works surprisingly well, and the O-ring gives a little bit of cushion in a crash.
Kind of like a budget version of the CRP idea.
Sort of, yeah. And CRP themselves sold just the shims too. They're part number 2524, if you only wanted to tackle the axial play. But today, 3D printing has changed the game.
Ah, replicas.
Exactly. You can find designs for the CRP 1650 brace all over places like Thingiverse. Companies like AJC Mods sell nicely printed versions, often in strong nylon. Functionally, they're pretty much identical to the original Delrin part and readily available.
Okay, so that covers replicating the original idea.
Right.
What about going beyond?
Well, then you get into the high-performance options. Full metal suspension kits. Companies like RC Channel make these beautiful machined aluminum or alloy A-arms, hubs, the whole setup.
And that eliminates the slop completely.
Pretty much. You get ultimate precision with metal parts. But there's always a but.
Right. If metal is so precise, why doesn't everyone just do that? What's the catch?
There are a few big ones. First, stress transfer. Remember how the Delrin brace had a bit of give?
Yeah, to protect the gearbox.
Metal doesn't have that give. So in a hard crash, all that impact force goes straight through those rigid metal arms, right into the original plastic gearbox casing. You risk a much more serious, expensive break. You might save the arm, but crack the whole front gearbox.
Ouch. Okay, that's a major risk.
Then there's weight. Metal parts add significant unsprung weight. That's the weight the suspension itself has to control. More unsprung weight generally means less responsive handling, ironically. It can actually hurt performance unless you upgrade shocks and springs too.
So it leads to needing more upgrades.
Potentially, yes. And finally, cost. These full metal kits are not cheap. We're talking, potentially $120 or more for a full front-end conversion. That's getting close to the price of a whole new Tamiya re-release kit itself.
So a big investment with some significant downsides.
Definitely things to consider.
Okay, so wrapping this up, for anyone listening who owns HotShot, old or new, or is just fascinated by this stuff, this sloppy front end is, well, it's more than just a flaw, isn't it? It's like a story about how a manufacturer's design and a passionate community interact.
It really is. It shows how imperfections can actually drive innovation. Choosing your solution today really comes down to what you want to do with the car.
So break it down for us, if you're restoring one.
If you're aiming for period correct, you hunt for that original CRP 1650, or maybe use a high-quality 3D print just for display authenticity.
Okay, and if you actually want to drive it, a runner.
For a practical runner, the original CRP or a good 3D printed replica, maybe in nylon or even Delrin if you can find it, probably offers the best mix. Good precision, but still some crash protection. Or, honestly, the DIY O-ring and washer trick is great for budget builds and bashers because it's cheap and forgiving.
And for the performance chasers, the resto modders.
If ultimate precision is the goal, then yeah, the RC Channel full metal pit is the way to go. But you have to go into it knowing the risks, the potential for gearbox damage in a crash, the weight penalty, and the cost.
It really feels like the legacy here isn't just about fixing some wobbly suspension arms. It's about the ingenuity it sparked.
Absolutely. That CRP 1650 represents the resourcefulness, the engineering spirit that's always been at the heart of the RC hobby. People seeing a problem and figuring out a clever way to solve it.
Makes you think, doesn't it? What other little design quirks in the things we use every day are just waiting for someone to come up with the next ingenious fix? Something to ponder.